Christmas Eve, 1914, the Western Front. 2 trenches spanning 400 miles from the Swiss border to the North Sea. In one trench, the German soldiers. In the other, the British Allied forces. It's World War I, and the fighting between these adversaries has been going on for over 5 months. On this night, around 8:30, the firing had nearly come to a standstill when the Brits heard something wafting over to them from the German trench. Voices. They listened. They were caroling to them in German. The Brits wondered, was this a trick? When the Germans finished the carol, the Brits caroled one back to them in English. And so it went back and forth for a little while, each side serenading the other in their native tongue from down in the relative safety of their trenches. And then something amazing happened. The Germans started to sing, Adeste Fideles. That's O Come All Ye Faithful in its original Latin. Well, the Brits knew the Latin verses as well and joined in. Leti triumphantes. And there you had enemy soldiers at war joining together in the same song. Now, the Brits knew that bearing one's head over the trench could mean death, but something made them trust that this was not a trick. Something gave them courage to try to further connect with those guys who less than an hour ago they considered their mortal enemies. They peeked over and saw Christmas trees lit up by hundreds of candles on the parapets of the German trench. Merry Christmas, the German shouted in English. We no shoot if you no shoot. And the Germans and the Brits made a pact that they would celebrate Christmas together in peace. It was that event, them singing a carol together, that brought them out of their trenches to greet each other in the middle of what was called no man's land and begin to understand each other as fellow human beings. They spent Christmas Eve and Christmas Day exchanging gifts, eating together, playing games, making each other laugh, exchanging contact information, and vowing to stay in touch after the war. They began to question what they were fighting for. The British commanding officers off-site, having heard of the unofficial Christmas truce, commanded the soldiers to stop fraternizing with the enemy and to resume firing. They didn't. Nearly 48 hours later, when the officers arrived on the scene, it was they themselves who fired the first shots that resumed the battle. 30 years later, one of the British soldiers said in an interview that if the officers hadn't interfered, he firmly believed that neither side ever would have fired another shot. But what was that other voice they had been listening to? What was it that caused hardened soldiers at war to come together in peace? Today, in a world where bad actors set in motion social media bots to hoodwink us and appeal to our most degenerate selves until we're divided and literally up in arms against each other for false reasons, I believe we could make a change for the better in this world if we ask ourselves, what voices are we attuned to? What voices do we give power to? Can we learn something from that Christmas truce of 1914? Was it Christmas magic? Well, I'm not ruling that out, but there is some juicy science behind what happened that night. Science that we can employ in our own lives to put us in touch with our better angels. Now, I've been the founder and director of a company of Broadway holiday carolers in New York City for 22 years. I'll tell you, it's given me front row seat insight into the human spirit around music and how that spirit transcends all sorts of boundaries like race, culture, and religion. In one of the most diverse cities in the world, I have consistently seen music bring very different people together as we invite them to carol with us. You see, you might have heard that music is a universal language, and it's true, it is. But did you know that music has the power to connect people emotionally? It's true. There are several pieces of research that indicate that music reliably conveys the intended emotion of the composer in all people who hear it. In different studies by neuroscientists Isabella Pretz and Tom Fritz found that listeners universally agree about whether a song is happy, sad, scary, or peaceful. And in the Fritz study found that that phenomenon transcends cultural and geographical borders. Recent data show that music reliably conveys certain sentiments. In other words, what you and I feel when we listen to a piece of music is remarkably similar to what everyone else around us listening is feeling. And thus, the soldiers on both sides, before having spoken a word to each other, became emotionally aligned from the music that they were hearing together. And that's just what can happen from listening to music together. There is unlimited power in making music together. Studies have shown, according to the Scientific American book, Music in the Brain, that making music together improved communication, coordination, cooperation, and empathy among group members that may be felt for decades. So how do we harness this, right? Well, I'm telling you, one person who's been doing it is the Middle Eastern conductor, Maestro Daniel Barenboim. He's been bringing young Israeli, Palestinian, and Iranian musicians together in the same orchestra. Now, these young people were raised to consider each other monsters, but there they are, making music together in the same orchestra. Sometimes they talk about politics. Sometimes they disagree. But Maestro Barenboim tells them that all they have to agree on is the music. He says, in the orchestra, we have equality. So when you create a situation where you have a Palestinian clarinet player with a difficult solo, and you have the whole orchestra wishing him well and accompanying him, it's the only place where a group that includes so many Israelis wishes the Palestinian well and vice versa. He's creating a more peaceful world, one rehearsal at a time. If more of us tapped into the power of music to summon our humanity, I believe with every bone in my body that we would see more world peace. So, what can we as individuals do when there's so much discord around us? Well, I'm inviting you to try something new. When you hear that voice rising up inside of you, that one that wants to scream, "You're wrong, that's evil," like, come on, so many of us are experiencing. Stop, breathe. Remember, there is another voice inside of you too. Be intentional about which voice you respond to, and respond to it with music, like this. I like to teach the world to sing, play, or turn on some inspiring music. Better yet, make inspiring music with people who might not agree with you. Imagine if board meetings or political meetings started out with a musical icebreaker. Starting out these meetings with music that evokes feelings of peace, inspiration, or anticipation would put everyone on the same emotional page and greatly improve the odds of communication, coordination, cooperation, and empathy. And just think what they could accomplish from there, even if they just built one inspiring chord together. You know what? We're going to try that. Don't worry. It's only going to take a minute. I don't care if you can't carry a tune in a bucket. Just jump on in. The water's fine. We're going to show the world something here. Okay, 4 parts, 4 sections. Section 1, Section 4, this big section right down the middle, Section 2 and 3. You'll figure it out. Okay, so everybody take a deep breath, sit up straight. I'm going to sing a note to you. When I point to your section, you're going to repeat it back to me and cut off when I do this, okay? Just like that. Ah, thank you. Beautiful. Okay, that's great. Now we're going to do it one more time, but this time when I sing, we're going to sing it together. And then you're going to hold that note. You're going to keep on holding it while I bring in the other sections, okay? Ah, 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 ah. Yes. Did you feel that? Do you feel that sense of anticipation? Now, most of us in this room don't even know each other, but we just made music together and are experiencing remarkably similar emotions. Just imagine what's possible from a launching pad like this. And there are countless ways we can use music as a peace-building tool, and really we should try, because political conversations are just pushing us apart. But it's been proven that music brings us together. Listen, there is an ill climate out there that has us hunkering down in our trenches these days. Can we climb out of our trenches and make some music together? I'm sure we could find all sorts of songs that we could sing together. I believe this because history, science, and current events all show us that when we make music together, we can build bridges of harmony between even the deadliest of enemies. If we intentionally listen, like those soldiers on the Western Front did, we will hear musical strains reaching toward us from the enemy camps, inviting us to blend our voices with theirs, to strike a chord of understanding. Thank you.